뒤에 서 계신 분들이 계신데 앞에가 비어 있거든요. 앞으로 좀 오시면 정 교수님이 해야 하는 앞으로 오세요. 앞에 이렇게 비어 있네요. 앞으로 오세요. 저 뒤에 학생들 앞으로 오세요. 자리 있어요. 안녕하세요. 정동영입니다. 반갑습니다. 다시 한번 인사드리겠습니다. 반갑습니다. 추운데 오니까 정신이 번쩍 나는데.
특별히 춤이 나옵니다.
영어는 많이 불편하지만 그러나 여기 또 명문 미시간 대학이고 또 한국 말 이해 못하는 분들도 계신 것 같아서 영어로 말씀 좀 드릴까 합니다. Good evening and thank you all for attending. I'm very much honored to have an opportunity to speak at the one of the world best University of Michigan here. Right? I'd like to express my thanks to Director David Chung, Professor Chung, Director of Center for Korea Studies. In the last presidential election in Korea, 2007, I was in the second place. Can you imagine how painful it is to come in the second place? I didn't necessarily support Senator John McCain's policy. However, I do know very well how he feels in his defeat. Today I'd like to present about the future of Korean Peninsula, especially on how to peacefully solve the North Korean nuclear issue, and also how to bring fundamental structural change in the Korean Peninsula. Last month, I had the fortunate chance to observe in person President Obama's inauguration in D.C. I witnessed the strength of American politics uniting the American people as the United Nations rather than blue states or red states. Good politics, I believe that good politics is that unites the people. In this sense, President Obama is beginning his tenure with great expectations and hope. As a Korean politician, I cannot but pay close attention to the kind of policy that the Obama administration will carry out toward the Korean Peninsula and the Northeast Asian region. As you know, the Berlin Wall came down 20 years ago. However, for the last 20 years, Korean Peninsula still remains inside the Cold War shadow with no fundamental outlet. This is mainly due to the North Korean nuclear problem. Once the nuclear issue is solved, structural changes can take place on the Korean Peninsula. There are three ways to solve the North Korean nuclear issue. Please let me see the map. This is the Atlas of the World released by National Geographic. When I found this map in the library, I was moved really. This map, satellite map, showed us, particularly to our Korean people. This geographical location and geopolitical location defined our tragic history, particularly in the past century. Colonial occupation and division and war and poverty. We have experienced very tragic history, modern history. However, in the 21st century, this geographical location gave us great opportunity for Korean people and Korean economy also. And however, in order to use this geopolitical advantage, we have to overcome firstly the barrier of nuclear issue first. There are three ways to solve to solve the North Korean issues. One is by force, as you know. In other words, we call it the coercive policy or compellers policy. As you see, the Bush administration put forth the coercive policy. In other words, a compellers policy toward North Korea. But we have seen that it's very difficult to solve this serious problem, mainly by force. When the Bush administration began, North Korea just had the capacity and the fiscal material to produce 1 or 2 nuclear bombs. However, during the last 8 years, North Korea did not only carry out nuclear tests, but also they have secured enough materials to produce 8 to 9 nuclear bombs. That, I believe, that is the clear proof of policy failure. Number 2 is just let it be, or we can call it disengagement policy. Disengagement, however, is irresponsible, or even dangerous for both the U.S. and South Korean people. And also, we know we cannot move our country to another continent using U-haul. So the rest of the solution is by engagement policy, by a diplomatic means. As you know, President Obama already stated that in order to solve global conflicts of serious consequences, he would be willing to talk directly with the leaders of adversary states, such as Iraq, Iran, North Korea, and so on. And Secretary of State Hillary Clinton also emphasized the importance of diplomacy in order to solve the nuclear issue with North Korea. I feel that the six-party talks frame is very important to solve it, but in my view, bilateral diplomacy at the highest level is also very essential to solve it. Thus, I'd like to recommend that rather than continue the dialogue at the working level, the highest level initiative should be engaged. Though North Korea is one of the smallest and one of the smallest country, and totally isolated from the rest of the world. However, we have seen. All that they have left is stubborn and obstinate pride, and face saving is more important than anything to them. The capital of North Korea, Pyongyang, always has wanted to be respected, to be treated as an equal dialogue partner by the United States. Moreover, whole the power is strictly concentrated on the absolute leader, Kim Jong-il, who has the authority to make decision whether his country keeps or gives up nuclear ambition. Let me show an example of direct talk with North Korean leader that could produce some important results. In June 2005, I met with Chairman Kim Jong-il in Pyongyang as a special presidential envoy. Look at the picture. Who is the better looking? They are saying that in Korea, 남남 동료. We talked over more than 5 hours on the various important issues that include nuclear problems. It's been over 1 year. The six-party talks has been in a stalemate. I felt that everybody asked me what kind of people he is. While when I met, what was first impression. Anyway, I felt that he and I can communicate with each other easily. While I was talking, he carefully listened to what I'm saying. And when I raised some serious issues that seemed reasonable to him, he accepted my suggestion, my proposal, my idea on the spot. He seemed very well informed on diplomatic issues and security issues. In particular, he is very keen and alert on any movement occurred in Washington, D.C. Regarding to deal with North Korean issues. Let me explain the atmosphere of the meeting with Kim Jong-il. I asked him, did you realize that the US President George W. Bush addressed you as Mr. Kim Jong-il while he was talking to the South Korean President at the summit meeting in Washington, D.C.? In the US, if you are addressed as Mr. Kim Jong-il, it's a form of high respect. Why don't you address Mr. Bush as Mr. President? He accepted my proposal. I stressed that the mutual respect of top leaders between two countries is more important than diplomatic talks. He stated frankly his hopes to make advancements toward reconciliation in the North and South relations, and his hopes of becoming a friendly nation to the United States. He asked how North Korea could return to the six-party talks wearing the hat of accused criminal. He argued that North Korea was not on trial. He stated that if the United States acknowledged North Korea as a nation, and if the U.S. agrees to give it equal status as a legitimate state, then he was ready to return to six-party talks at any time, which had been stalling for 1 year. He said if the U.S. would not threaten regime change of the North, then there was no reason for them to pursue nuclear ambition. The fact of the matter was, this was the first time since the eruption of the second nuclear crisis in 2000 that the two Koreas had come together to discuss this serious nuclear issue together. Kim Jong-il's message was very clear. He wanted his country to be accepted as a friendly nation to the United States. I knew that this was the optimal time for the power of diplomacy to work. After returning from Pyongyang, I flew to Washington, D.C. to see, I met with Vice President Dick Cheney and conveyed Kim Jong-il's message to him. However, Vice President Cheney, he was all the way skeptical. He asked me, do you believe him? I responded, whether I believe him or not is not the point. The most important thing is to make sure that we have to bind him to what he has said. Cheney said that if Kim Jong-il returns to the six-party talks as promised within 1 month, then he would give full consideration to the message I gave him. Anyhow, the six-party talks resumed as promised in July 2005. After ongoing negotiations throughout August and September, we finally reached the joint statement of September 19, 2005. This statement included everything both the United States and North Korea wanted. This statement contains 3 main pillars. North Korea will dismantle all its nuclear weapons and nuclear programs. The United States will normalize the relations with Pyongyang and Washington. And the most important thing is the third one. Concerned parties related to the Korean War will start discussions to change the true situation to the permanent peace regime, peace system. At the time, I was the Minister of Unification and chairperson of the Korean National Security Council Standing Committee. I am proud to have contributed toward this agreement in 2005. From my experience in dealing with North Korea, if we are to expect any kind of breakthrough, or rather than working level negotiations, tangible negotiation must take place at the highest level. We must recall that it was the dialogue between former President Jimmy Carter, and the former so-called great leader Kim Il-sung that saw the solution to the first nuclear crisis in 1994. President Obama begins his term with a heap of problems, including the Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan, and first of all, economic turmoil. Of course, I don't expect that he is able to see the Chairman Kim Jong-il soon to solve the nuclear problem. If that is so, however, he needs to appoint a special envoy of global caliber that will promptly focus on this issue solely. Recently, State Secretary Hillary Clinton has assigned Stephen Bosworth, the former ambassador to South Korea, as a special representative for North Korea and overseeing the U.S. efforts in the six-party talks. If the talks go well, President Obama should appoint someone like former President Bill Clinton as a top-level special envoy to North Korea to talk directly to leader Kim Jong-il. I'm sure he will find the time to do this while he's now a house husband between doing the laundry and As you remember, President Clinton, during his last months in the presidency, he was preparing a visit to Pyongyang to meet with Chairman Kim Jong-il in 2000. Already there was a joint communique that had been agreed upon between the two leaders that promised to end antagonism and normalize relations between two sides, between the United States and North Korea. The only thing missing was the actual signature by the two leaders. A meeting between these two leaders would skip that 8-year void under the Bush administration and create a bridge that would lead to the diplomatic solution of the nuclear crisis. As you see, in October 2000, the military general, 4-star general Cho Myung-mok of the North Korean army visited Washington D.C. to meet President Clinton at the White House, and the Secretary of State Albright visited Pyongyang to meet Kim Jong-il in October 2000. However, next month, in November 2000, the government changed. So the then President-elect George W. Bush declared that the policy direction of ABC, as you know, ABC means anything but Clinton. The negotiation between Washington and Pyongyang must not be narrowed on the nuclear issue alone. It must be a more comprehensive set of negotiations that includes political, economic, and security issues between the two countries. This approach would be far more effective. There are two models of comprehensive approach. And one is a Perry process made by former Secretary Bill Perry under the Clinton administration in 1999. The other one is the, as I said, the September 19th joint statement in 2005. Once the North Korean nuclear issue is solved, the Northeast Asian region will be far more stable and prosperous, peaceful. The Korea-US alliance will become stronger, and it can move toward a newer and more creative cooperative phase. A new discussion for a regional collective security mechanism can be activated at the initiative of the United States. This would be a successful outcome of the Obama administration's diplomacy. At the same time, a new wave of change, fundamental change, will get rid of the 60-year history of conflict and confrontation in the Korean Peninsula. In this process, the role of South Korean governments must be constructive and robust. In this sense, I cannot but express my deepest regret that relations between Seoul and Pyongyang are at its worst at the moment. The South-North dialogue must be restored as well as carried out between the United States and North Korea. Seoul and Washington must be able to see eye to eye. I believe this is a requisite for a stronger alliance. In other words, there must be a virtuous and not a vicious circle in the relations among Washington, Pyongyang, and Seoul. Let's move another topic. Korea needs to make the next bold step of big change. We want to transform conflicts and confrontation into opportunities. I call these efforts to try to make structural change on the Korean Peninsula as the fourth wave of change in the Korean Peninsula. The first wave of agricultural revolution in the Korean Peninsula came 8,000 years ago. The second wave of industrialization started in the 1960s. That made Korea lag behind Japan by 100 years and behind the West by 200 years. And the so-called third wave of democratization movement came in the 1980s, and also the third wave of information technology started 1990s in Korea, South Korea. That made this economy more competitive. Now is the time, I believe that now is the time for the fourth wave of big change, sea change in the Korean Peninsula. From my point of view, the fourth wave of change on the Korean Peninsula will start by expanding and advancing the Kaesong Industrial Complex Project, GIC. Have you ever heard about the GIC, Kaesong? Okay. Kaesong is situated north of DMZ. As you see, Kaesong is just north of DMZ. It's far from Seoul, just 40 miles away from the center of Seoul, 40 miles away. You can see Incheon International Airport on the left-hand side, and Seoul and the Kaesong. Let me say, Seoul is a center of finance in the Korean economy, and also Incheon has a good international airport and harbor there. And Kaesong, just north of DMG, it can be a center for manufacturing in the Korean economy. Every morning, hundreds of vehicles, trucks and passenger cars are waiting for in front of the DMG, in front of the to get the permission from the border control. Okay, please show. Yeah, this is the line of demarcation line dividing south and north. You see the picture of GIC project. Is pilot project now. 97 factories are set up there, and 39,000 North Korean workers, along with 1,000 South Korean engineers, work here together. And they produce garments, textile, and shoes, and auto parts. And now 200 more factories are waiting for investment there. The original plan of GIC, the size of Kaesong Industrial Complex is the number is changed. Not the 35,000, the number is increased to 39,000, and the South Korean workers reduced because, as you know, North Korea strictly controlled the entry from the south to north last December. The number downsized. Anyway, the originally Kaesong plan, the size is 25 square miles. Now, just 1 square mile is completed. And just 10% of the completed area is occupied by 97 factories. However, unfortunately, the Kaesong project is facing a certain crisis now. Last December, North Korea decided to control the entry to the GIC. Business has not stopped yet, but it's clear that all the progress made to these days is going to meet many obstacles. The reason behind this is, of course, the deterioration of relations between South and North at the moment. Just because, let me say, just because there was a change in government in Seoul, we cannot simply pretend that the agreements made between the former South Korean presidents and North Korean leader Kim Jong-il did not exist. Returning to the era of South-North confrontation and conflict is not desirable and will not serve anyone's interests. I'm very proud of the fact that as Unification Minister, I was able to turn the GIC blueprint into a tangible project. Originally, the GIC agreement was reached upon after the historic summit meeting in 2000 between Chairman Kim Jong-il and President Kim Dae-jung. However, the project had been delayed because of the nuclear issue. At the time, Washington did not want South Korea to rush into the GIC project because nuclear crisis, nuclear issues. However, my thoughts were different. I was convinced that the Kaesong project would be very helpful to peacefully solve the nuclear issue with the North. As Unification Minister, my vision was to complete the GIC project. Once decided to proceed with the project, I flew to Washington. Let me explain you. According to the U.S. law, so-called EAR, Export Administration Restrictions, regulations, that prohibits any country to bring high-tech materials such as computers that includes more than 10% of intellectual property of the United States into the adversary states such as Iraq, Iran, North Korea should be allowed by the U.S. government. So I need to get approval from the Commerce Department in the United States. However, as you know, there are two policymakers under the Bush administration. There are some doves and there are some strong hawks. Dovish people are supportive, but hawkish people are very reluctant and against the GIC project. So I had to persuade the hardline policy makers. I met the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Rumsfeld. I told him that the Kaesong project was not a mere economic project, economic cooperation between the two Koreas. It was a project with military strategy in mind. I emphasized that one of the strategic goals of the Korea-US military alliance is one of the goals is to promptly detect any movement of attack by the North. So having an industrial complex inside the North Korea, just north of DMZ, would be increasing the warning time at least by 24 hours or 48 hours. This is very, very, very critical to the security situation in the Korean Peninsula, because DMZ is so close to the metropolitan area of South Korea, where over 20 million people dwell on there. I asked him, do we have any reason to delay this kind of project? I heard afterwards, Secretary Rumsfeld paid close attention to what I have explained, and he showed me into his small office. And in the middle of the room, there was a round table. On it, underneath the table, a satellite picture there. It was taken by the satellite during the night time. As you see, the southern part of the Korean Peninsula is illuminated by dots of bright lines. However, the northern half, just one dot. Where is it? You know? You guess? Where? Pyongyang. The eastern part, the dots on the eastern part on the sea, in the sea, is fishing vessels. Anyway, Rumsfeld told me that our goal of U.S.-Korea alliance is to expand bright lights all the way to the north. I respond that GIC projects will be very helpful to achieve the goal you mentioned. I heard this afterward. After I left, Secretary Rumsfeld told his aides to add the Kaesong agenda to the agenda list to be discussed with President George W. Bush on the next day's luncheon meeting. Anyway, immediately after returning from Washington D.C., I directed the Kaesong construction project begin, and the Washington government changed their attitude toward the Kaesong project from negative to a positive attitude, and they gave Washington people gave us full support for setting up factories in Kaesong area. Let me say, if the GIC is completed as planned before construction, its gross product only will exceed the total amount of gross domestic product of North Korea. The monthly wage of North Korean worker in GIC is around $70 per month. $70 per month is not an hourly wage, it's a monthly wage, it's $70. If GIC plans to expand are carried out, the number of North Korean workers could reach to 500,000 people. And if 10 or more, 10 or 20, 30 similar GIC projects are set up in the other North Korean coastal areas, it would bring about the factor of economic integration between the two Koreas. Recently, I learned that the business school at Harvard University has selected GIC as a case study model. In fact, it's a perfect example of transforming conflicts into opportunities in the Korean Peninsula. I'd like to say to Pyongyang, using the Kaesong project in order to pressure the South Korean government is not punishing the South, but punishing itself. A promise made between two countries must be respected under any circumstances. If Kaesong is stopped, then Pyongyang will lose credibility before the international society. Once confidence is lost, this is very difficult to regain. I'm confident that talks to solve the nuclear issue will begin to bear fruits. If this grave problem can be solved through dialogue and relations are normalized with the United States, North Korea will have to pursue policies for their economic development. When this time comes, Kaesong project will be an important economic foundation. And the South Korean government also should try to solve the current problem with Kaesong project from a pragmatic point of view and approach, rather than ideologically. From a mid to long-term perspective, the GIC can become a fortress that leads the kind of economic development that China already experienced. For the South, the GIC is a very good solution to problems that the small and medium-sized businesses in South Korea face today. Opportunities and solutions that can be found here should not be shut off. I'd like to encourage the United States also to take attention of GIC. It will be a good model to use in order to have North Korea join the rest of the world, join of the international community. Last year, North Korea was eliminated from the list of sponsor states of terrorism. Finally, eventually, it will be also excluded from the Trade Act, trading with enemy act. When this happens, Kaesong will be a case to let the North show that they can survive without nuclear ambition, nuclear weapons. Thank you very much indeed.
To open the floor to Q&A. Do you have does someone have the wireless microphone back there?
Can I take one?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Yangshan Wu, or I go by Crystal. I'm a junior in the University of Michigan. I'm a biology major, and 의원님께 질문하고 싶은 거는 왜 우리가
In Korean first and later in English also.
Okay. First, my question is, why do you think we, to Korea, should be united? The background of my question is because I feel like my generation don't really care about North Korea much. And maybe like we would like think about 꽃보다 남자 all the time, but I haven't heard of any talk about North Korea, any like dinner table or lunch table among my friends. So considering that lack of interest about North Korea, like, would you inform us the reason why we have to unite it, or like if there's any another opinions that you can suggest us?
Yeah, that's a good question. As you raised that question, why we unite South and North? The Korean young generation are not interested in unification issues. I understand that. And also, young generation also got some totally negative image on North Korea. For example, nuclear test or nuclear bombs or missile test or poverty and Kim Jong-il and so on. So it's a little bit natural for you to have a question, have a skepticism on the unification issue. However, as you know, we are the only one country, it's just one nation, one people, two states in the world. And as you know, we Korean people has lived together for over 1,300 years since 7th century in the Korean Peninsula. Now we have lived under the division of 60 years, just 60 years. It's our calling to bring our country to the normal state before division. And also, let me say, division. National division is not made by our people. It's not by us. Division was made by superpowers. That shows the very tragic history. And so, as I told you, we cannot move to a European continent or American continent using U-Haul. We have to live with the North that have 23 million people under the very miserable situation. And now North Korea is not only the problem, but also North Korea means opportunity for us. Opportunity. if we transform the the situation of confrontation conflict into the cooperation and opportunities, it would provide us great chances to advance our country. Let me say, as Kaesong project showed you, North Korea has over 12 million well-educated, well-trained workforces who are eager to work under any conditions. And also, as you know, Korean economy is now struggling because of the Korean economy suffers from the fact of as you know, the level of land price. The price of land is the highest in the world. Under that condition, Korean business people cannot run their business with a big burden of land price and high cost of laborers. So they want to escape from the South Korea to China or to Vietnam or Indonesia. When the South Korean businesses go to China or Vietnam, the Korean industry becomes vacuum. No jobs there. But when the South Korean business invest in the GIC, they run the assembly line in the north. But the South Korean employees should provide raw materials and as I said, what I mean, marketing and research and development and design and parts supply should be done in the south. So they keep the jobs. So North Korea is not burdened. We for the last 60 years we had paid too much because of our division, but now we have to change the burden and conflict into opportunities. That's the reason why we have to pursue unification. That's enough?
The microphone or?
Yeah.
Yeah. My name is Jitae Kim, studying political science at the University of Michigan. And first of all, I want to express great appreciation for the lecture on behalf of all the audience. That was really great. My question is that I was until last 2 years ago, I was working at the Command and Forces Command as an interpreter.
Command force?
Yeah, Hamiyonapsa. And we have all considered the military exercise by North Korea. By the way, recently, and not just recently, the North Korea has long been denouncing the military exercise by Iraq and United States forces, UFL and RSY, which is scheduled next month. Yes. So, key resolution. Yeah. So, what do you think about those denouncements?
It's very it's a good question. It's very bad and sad situation in the Korean Peninsula. As I told you, Germany, the Berlin Wall, already crashed 20 years ago. But the Korean Peninsula still remains in the condition, in the situation of confrontation, tension. these days, North Korea threatens toward the South Korea, even war, the possibility of war. It's a very tragic situation for us. Anyway, the core at the core of the Korean instability is there is a nuclear issue. And these days, North Korea says they are preparing to launch a long-range missile soon. I interpreted they want to draw attention from the United States that now is reviewing policy toward the North. We know the priority of North Korean issue is so low inside the Washington D.C. and North Korea wants to elevate the level of priority on their issue to a higher level. Anyway, as you know, these days the relations between the South and North totally collapsed. It stopped. Now is the time for South Korean government to play a very constructive and very important role to peacefully solve the North Korean issues along with the United States. However, the relations between South and North is totally deteriorated within 1 year. It's a bad situation. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your lecture, and my name is Taewan, and I'm studying political science senior. And I understand that you're a big supporter of the Sunshine Policy, which started in 1998 by the former President Kim Dae-jung, and that has been ended by the assumption of President Lee Myung-bak. That policy has been ended, and then there's like growing tensions between the North and South. As you said, the relationship has been devastated recently, that North is threatening to test fire and something like that. You said that we have to collaborate with the North Korea, and that's what you said the first way. But without the support of the public, which waited 10 years, so I say Sunshine Policy started in 1998, and the public supported it for the 10 years. But some people evaluated the Sunshine Policy that there hasn't been much outcome except for the inter-Korean summit, or the families going to North Korea and then meeting the family, something like that. So the public waited for 10 years, and now without the support of the public, we cannot advance the Sunshine Policy anymore. Politics is very important to accompany the public support. So how do you think that we can advance the economic or political or diplomatic collaboration with North Korea?
Yeah, I agree on your view. We have to make public support on the engagement policy. However, inside South Korea, 30% of population are very strongly against any reconciliatory policy toward the North because of our very tragic memory during the Korean War. Comparing to the German unification situation, there were no war between West and East Germany, but the Korean people had a very bad memory during of Korean War. So it's very difficult to get the unanimous support on our policy. However, after 10 years of engagement policy, I prefer engagement to engagement policy, total engagement policy to sunshine policy. After 10 years of engagement policy, let's see, let us see, the level of hatred, the level of hatred and acrimony, is drastically decreased. Comparing to the year of before engagement policy, even when the North Korean official called in the Panmunjom, we can make Seoul as a 불바다, a sea of fire. The South Korean people were shocked and the stock market was plunged. But now North Korea, even if they threaten every day toward the South, but the South Korean people, South Korean economy still stabilized. That, in my interpretation, that was owing to the outcome of reconciliation and cooperation for the past 10 years. So anyway, as I showed you, there are just three options for us to deal with North Korea. Besides engagements, what kind of option can we have? Can we have on the North Korean issue? Anyway, as you pointed out, national support, public support is very important for us, and also the now incumbent conservative government also is not successful to get the public support on their policy. That has very the current government takes a very tough position toward the North, but most of Korean people are skeptical on the hardline position toward the North of the conservative government. Thank you.
A couple more questions?
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm a sophomore at the university, and I was
What
wondering.
use?
Of Michigan. Sorry. Well, for the past 5 years with the Bush and past Korean regime, we've given North Korea aid and more aid, and some would call it appeasement. Don't you think that a time is right to try a fresh approach, perhaps sort of respectful disengagement? I mean, for the past couple of decades, all we've tried is engagement, initiating talks on our part, and we really haven't gotten anywhere from that. What are your thoughts on how we should move forward from now?
Yeah, you call it appeasement. You are using the word of appeasement. However, comparing to the small country, North Korea, South Korea is stronger in terms of military and in terms of economy, and also U.S. and Japan and South Korea is much bigger than North Korea. Our efforts to negotiation with the North and our efforts to provide some humanitarian aid is I think it's not the appeasement. It's not by appeasement. It's as I told you during the after 10 years of engagement policy, we can see the tension, the level of tension and the level of confrontation is drastically lowered. So, as we see under the Bush administration, they see North Korea as axis of evil. So, because North Korea is evil, they should eliminate the evil by means of preemptive strike or military option. And the goal of the neo-conservative policymakers is regime change of North Korea. However, totally they failed. The hardline policy failed. And now, let me say the ultimate goal of North Korean leader, North Korean regime, and that pursue the nuclear ambition. In my view, there are two goals. They will get the guarantee of regime survival from the outside world, particularly from the United States. And the second goal of the North Korean regime is to get the more economic aid from the rest of the world. So if we provide some humanitarian aid towards North Korea, is not the appeasement. It's a way of humanitarian assistance. Is my view. All right, thank you.
One last